It all starts in a modern city on a very sunny day, showing a large office building. Inside the office, we see our protagonist working as he wonders about a strange event from the day before. Focused on his keyboard, the guy tries to remember what exactly happened last night. Then he recalls how a blue screen suddenly appeared in his room and startled him quite a bit. Surprised by the floating shop window, he wonders if he's just seeing things. Taking a closer look, he tries to buy a tunic, but can't because he doesn't have any coins. Soon after, he finds a hammer for smashing zombie skulls costing 5 coins. This image gives him a vision of several zombies coming toward him, which makes him very worried. Back at the office, he ignores these thoughts, thinking his mind is just tired from exhaustion. Unexpectedly, his furious manager appears, walking toward him and shouting his name. The boss approaches the guy and asks if he's daydreaming again. Slamming his hand on the desk, he tells the young man to focus and asks if he took care of last week's work. Our protagonist knows the problem was with the other company, which didn't prepare the documents correctly. On top of that, he thinks his boss is incompetent and is now putting on a show for everyone to see. Annoyed by the lack of response, the manager glares at the guy with an angry expression. Then he yells and asks if the employee is going to keep responding to him like that. Suddenly, a female voice calls for the manager, making him change his expression instantly. A beautiful coworker offers him a drink and tells him to cheer up. Instantly, the man's angry face turns into a goofy smile upon seeing the woman. Grabbing her hand, he invites her to dinner after work, completely forgetting about the argument. The manager keeps hitting on the woman, saying it would be a waste for her to go home looking so pretty. With an awkward smile, she declines the invitation, saying she already has other plans for today. The man accepts and says they can have a drink another time, while the woman politely agrees. As soon as the boss walks away, the woman sighs in relief, glad to be out of the awkward situation. Seeing this, our protagonist thanks her for her help, and she turns to him with a slight smile. Looking at the sky, the guy can only think about how much he'd like to go home right now. Outside, he gets angry at his boss, thinking that if it weren't for his colleague, he'd still be in there. Smoking on the rooftop, he laments not being able to leave the company, as finding a new job would be difficult. Thinking about the help he received, he decides he'll buy the woman a coffee later. Just then, Shauna herself appears on the rooftop and finds him there alone. Surprised, he asks what brings her up there since she doesn't even smoke. The woman explains that she came up to escape the annoying manager for a bit. She says a client disappeared and now the boss is taking it out on everyone and still asking her out. Suddenly, she feels a chill and comments that the day is a bit cold, leaving the guy confused. The woman insists it's not normal and shows her goosebumps even though she's wearing long sleeves. He laughs and says she must be sensitive to the cold, but she pulls out her phone to prove her point. Then she shows him a social media post showing snow in Africa. The protagonist is shocked by the news and wonders if it's even real. She agrees it's strange, and at that moment, both of their phones start vibrating with an alert. It was a cold wave warning in the middle of summer, and right after, another emergency notification arrives. They read the alert, which warns of a sudden cold wave and a sharp drop in temperature. They both think it must be a mistake, as a cold wave warning in June makes no sense at all. Suddenly, a small snowflake gently falls onto the protagonist's outstretched hand. His colleague complains about the cold while he stares at the snow in his hand. Completely shocked, they both look up at the sky and are surprised to realize it's actually snowing in the middle of summer. By nightfall, the once sunny city is now completely covered in snow. Back in the office, the guy drinks something warm and thinks the world has finally gone crazy. Feeling it getting even colder, he decides to pack his things and head home right away. When he gets to the elevator, he sees the panel shows the 6th floor, so he calls it to go down. However, the elevator doesn't move, and he presses the button again, wondering if it's broken. Suddenly, a blast of icy wind hits him, making him hug himself and complain about the cold. With the status window in his head, he decides to take the stairs to leave quickly. As he goes down the steps, he keeps grumbling about the cold and the crazy weather. Nearing his floor, he hears the sound of the elevator doors closing behind him. Turning around, he sees the doors are open and wonders if the elevator wasn't broken after all. The doors keep opening and closing on their own, and he finds the silence of the place strange. Suddenly, all the lights go out and the hallway is plunged into darkness, making him very nervous. Finding the situation dangerous, he decides to forget his things and just get out of there as fast as possible. Soon after, he hears a weird sound of scraping metal coming from inside the office. It gives him the chills, and he decides he needs to grab his things and run out of that place. He carefully enters the dark office to get his belongings and leave quickly. The guy finds the silence odd and remembers there were more people there before he went to the rooftop. Arriving at his desk, he finds it all messy and wonders what happened. He notices the place looks like it was abandoned in a hurry and calls out for someone. That strange sound from before and the mess give him a very bad feeling. Determined to leave as quickly as possible, he grabs his backpack to finally go home. At that moment, a scary shadow of a person appears on the wall behind him. Startled by the sudden presence, he quickly turns around to see who is there. Looking toward the meeting room, he feels that there's something inside. Walking toward it, he steps on something on the floor and realizes it's a dirty ID badge. He takes a step back and looks at the identification card on the floor with curiosity. As he picks up the badge, he sees it's covered in a red liquid and belongs to a colleague. Frightened by what he found, he falls backward and wonders what happened there. Desperate, he starts crawling away from the meeting room in great fear. His eyes widen in terror as he stares intently at the room's door. Very cautiously, he peeks through the blinds to try and see what's happening in there. Inside the dark room, he can only see a pair of glowing red eyes shining brightly. The creature inside is crouched on the floor and seems to be feeding on something. Completely terrified by the scene, he can't believe what he's seeing. The creature lifts its head, revealing a mouthful of a red liquid and sharp teeth. The guy is shocked to see that the creature is one of his transformed coworkers. Realizing their eyes have met, he panics and starts running away. The monster leaps over the desks and pursues him, violently knocking the protagonist to the floor. Fallen and scared, he can't believe he's face to face with a real zombie. The creature lunges at him, but the young manages to dodge the attack by a hair's breadth. Terrified by the situation, he wonders what kind of scary creature this is. Looking for a way out, he glances around and quickly grabs a chair to defend himself. With all his strength, he lifts the chair high and prepares to attack the monster. In an act of desperation, he hits the zombie's head with the chair in a powerful blow. The impact sends the creature flying, and the guy takes this chance to run away. Running for his life, he feels adrenaline and fear take over his body. To his despair, the monster gets up quickly and starts chasing him again, even faster. Seeing a nearby door, he runs to it and slams it shut to protect himself from the creature. The zombie starts pounding on the door violently, trying to break it down to get him. Using his full weight, the protagonist struggles to keep the door closed. Hearing the frightening sounds from the other side, he's completely frozen with fear. Suddenly, the noise stops, and he sees the zombie slowly walking away down the dark hallway. With trembling hands, he continues to hold the door, still in disbelief about what just happened. Relieved, he slides down the wall and sits on the floor, trying to catch his breath. Still in shock, he stammers to himself that it was definitely a zombie. His phone vibrates, showing an emergency alert about a virus spreading through the city. Confused by the news about rabies, he runs a hand through his hair and complains about the whole situation. He remembers the creature he saw and is sure that it was a zombie, not rabies. Sitting on the floor, he picks up his phone to search for news and understand what's happening. Browsing a forum, he sees several reports of people being attacked and the world ending. Realizing the chaos, he wonders if this is related to yesterday's status window. The guy searches for information about the window, but finds no results and dismisses the idea. Suddenly, his phone screen starts to glitch and the image becomes completely distorted. He looks at the device, not understanding what's happening to his phone screen. Soon after, a message appears on the screen informing him that the connection has been lost. Desperate with the lack of communication, he wonders what he should do now. Putting his hands on his face, he realizes he's in a very difficult situation. Shivering from the cold, he feels his teeth chattering and complains about the low temperature of the place. Huddled on the stairs, he fears he'll freeze before the zombies even get him. Standing up, the young man decides he needs to hold on until a rescue team shows up. Checking his phone, he notices the battery is at 83% and should last for 2 days. With a determined look, he looks up and prepares to explore the building. Using his phone's flashlight to light the way, he starts climbing the stairs. Reaching the 7th floor, he sees that it houses the building's construction team. He enters the empty floor, hoping to find clothes or food to survive. He starts searching through the drawers, hoping to find something useful for his situation. In one of the drawers, he finds a clean, neatly folded dress shirt that he can wear. After changing his clothes, he feels much better and warmer to continue exploring. Now, his focus is on finding food, so he continues to search the floor's cabinets. With a smile on his face, he celebrates finding a backpack full of supplies. Inside the backpack, he finds food, water, and even a blanket to keep warm. He thanks the bag's unknown owner and puts it on his shoulders, ready for whatever comes next. With his supplies secured, he now needs to find a weapon to defend himself. Approaching a door, he is surprised to find a set of golf clubs. With an ironic smile, he realizes his boss's golf clubs might come in handy. He hangs his bag and the clubs on the staircase and prepares to wait out the night. Wrapped in the blanket, he wonders if the food will last for 3 days and if rescue will arrive. Looking out the window, he sees the snow falling outside and worries about his situation. The streets are in chaos with cars exploding and hordes of zombies everywhere. The blizzard is so strong that he knows it will be difficult for a rescue helicopter to arrive. Worried, he sits on the floor and wonders what he'll do if rescue takes a week. The cold gets worse and worse, and he huddles in the blanket, trying to stay warm. Suddenly, the status window he had seen before reappears in front of him. He remembers that the shop had winter clothes and thinks they would be very useful now. Looking at the items in the shop, he wonders how on earth he can get coins. Focused on the blue screen, he tries to figure out a way to get coins to buy the items. With no clues, he lowers his head and tries to think of a solution to this problem. As the snow falls outside, he huddles in his blanket, feeling the cold increase more and more. Suddenly, he hears approaching footsteps and quickly gets up to investigate the source. The sound seems to be coming from the emergency exit door, so he prepares for a possible attack. The noise gradually gets louder, and he realizes something has tried to open the door. With his heart racing, the guy prepares for the worst and grips his golf club tightly. He throws off the blanket and positions himself to attack, thinking it's another monster. The door knob starts to turn slowly, indicating the door is about to open at any moment. Holding the club with both hands, he raises it above his head, ready to strike. As soon as the door opens, the young man doesn't hesitate and launches an attack with all his strength. At the last second, a person runs in and narrowly dodges the blow. With no time to think, he prepares to attack again, golf club in hand. The man shields himself with his arms and desperately yells for him to stop the attack. Surprised, he recognizes the person as a co-worker and slowly lowers his weapon. He remembers this was the annoying guy from the sales team and feels very disappointed. The man explains that he was in the break room when he heard knocking on the door from outside. He brags about being smart and locking the door from the inside to protect himself. The protagonist says he just opened the door and ran, making his colleague think it was easy. Not caring about the story, the man gets his attention and points to his own hand. The man then asks if he has any food because he's very hungry, and the guy is surprised. Our protagonist denies having any food, thinking he can't share his emergency supplies. He decides to offer only water, and the person thanks him while watching him strangely. Suddenly, the colleague grabs our hero's wrist and holds the bottle very tightly. With a desperate look, he asks if the young man is sure there's nothing else to eat. Seeing that strange reaction, the guy realizes something is very wrong with his companion. As he fills the bottle, he thinks about how unsettling the man's behavior is. He notices the man is sweating a lot despite the intense cold in the place. Out of nowhere, the man transforms into a monster and lunges to attack the protagonist by surprise. The creature grabs him and throws him violently to the ground, putting the guy in a dangerous situation. In a swift move, he manages to hit the zombie's face with the metal bottle he was holding. Seizing the opportunity, he grabs a golf club and prepares to finish the creature off for good. With all his strength, the young man lands a powerful blow on the monster's head, which falls to the ground. Even on the ground and injured, the zombie continues to grow and WY in a frightening way. Seeing that the creature is still moving, he holds the club firmly for another decisive strike. Determined to survive, the protagonist strikes the monster several times without any mercy. The attack is brutal, and he keeps striking until he's sure the threat has been completely neutralized. He doesn't stop attacking the zombie on the floor, making sure it won't get up again. After the final blow, the guy finally stops and observes the result of his terrible actions. Completely exhausted and shocked, he tries to catch his breath after the intense fight. The status window appears in front of him, showing that he earned 1 coin from the fight. Noticing the connection, he opens the shop and sees that he now has 1 coin in his inventory. Looking at the items, he finally understands that he needs to eliminate zombies to earn coins. Annoyed, he realizes he risked his life for just 1 measly coin and gets frustrated. With a serious look, he analyzes the zombie's body on the floor to understand what happened. Approaching carefully, he investigates the body to see if he can find any clues. He then notices a bite mark on the man's arm and understands how he got infected. Kneeling on the floor, he sighs with relief and mourns the loss of his former colleague. He goes back to the office and sits down to rest and process everything that has happened. He smokes a cigarette and thinks that he can't trust anyone anymore in this situation. The guy finds a pack of cigarettes and puts it in his bag for later. Suddenly, he hears screams from outside and gets up to see what's happening. Looking out the window, he observes the horror scene unfolding on the city streets. A survivor bravely fights with a bat against a horde of hungry zombies. Unfortunately, he gets surrounded by the monsters and is quickly overpowered by their large numbers. In no time, The man is completely overwhelmed by the zombies with no chance of escape. The creature that got him turns around, revealing its now disfigured and terrifying face. Frightened by the scene, the guy steps away from the window and goes back inside the office. He sits in a chair and laments the terrible situation he's in now. Looking at the snow falling outside, he prepares for another long night of survival. Lying on a table, the protagonist tries to get some rest in the dark, cold office. By the third day, his phone battery is at only 3%, and he's worried. With few snacks left, he has spent his time saving energy and looking out the window. During this time, he saw several people trying to escape, but they all ended up turning into zombies. Despite everything, he concludes that he needs to make a move and starts packing his gear to leave. Staying put will only bring him closer to the end. So, he needs to find other survivors. With his backpack and weapons, he sets out determined to find someone to team up with and get out of there. His first goal is the 6th floor to check if the entrance is really blocked as they said. Walking down the hall, he suddenly notices something unexpected and stops in surprise. With a glimmer in his eyes, he sees a light and is filled with hope as he realizes what it means. Excited by the discovery, he starts running through the office toward the light he saw in the distance. Reaching the window, he looks outside, but his joyful expression soon vanishes from his face. The landscape outside remains the same with all the city buildings covered in a lot of snow. His eyes reflect the desolate city as he thinks about what to do next to live. He's disappointed to see it's still dark outside, and his hopes diminish a little. However, the lights came on, so he concludes that someone must have turned on the emergency generator. This confirms his suspicions, and now he's sure there's another survivor in the building. Knowing the lights could go out at any moment, he needs to act very quickly. He needs to find the other survivor before the power runs out and everything goes dark again. The guy figures the person is on the 1st floor and starts heading down the stairs carefully. To avoid making noise, he takes off his shoes and carefully ties them around his neck. He descends the stairs silently, thinking this is better than attracting hungry zombies. Arriving on the 6th floor, he approaches the door to check the situation on the other side. Very cautiously, he peeks through the crack in the door to take a quick look down the hallway. He sees the entrance is blocked by heavy equipment, exactly as he had imagined. Excited by this discovery, he believes there might be more survivors than he thought. The emergency exit sign shows the way to the 2nd and 1st floors of the building. He approaches the lobby door and imagines there must be a lot of zombies nearby. Taking a deep breath, he slowly turns the door knob and prepares for what he'll find. Peeking through the gap in the door, he hopes not to find any creatures on the other side. Unfortunately for him, the lobby is completely infested with zombies and the situation is very dangerous. The creatures are everywhere and he realizes that getting out of the building will be an impossible task. Surprised by the number, he sees an entire horde of zombies wandering around the 1st floor. Relieved, he closes the door and realizes the zombies from outside haven't managed to get in yet. He hears the creatures banging on the glass door and fears it could break at any moment. With no time to waste, he runs down the hall to find the other survivor as fast as he can. Reaching the management office, he finds the door open and enters cautiously. Inside, he finds a frozen man and recognizes him as the building's security guard. The guy remembers how the guard would take off his clothes due to severe hypothermia. With respect, he closes the deceased eyes and says goodbye to the man he saw every morning. With his golf club in hand, he bids farewell to the security guard and wishes him to rest in peace. With no time to lose, he returns to the hallway and continues his search for the other survivor. The only place left is the security room, so he's sure someone is in there. He approaches the door and imagines there might be traps to protect against intruders. With a determined look, he realizes he needs to show that he's not a zombie or a threat. Outside, a zombie conners bizarrely while making scary sounds in the hallway. Another monster approaches and starts screaming loudly, attracting the attention of other creatures. Knowing they have good hearing, he knocks on the door to get the attention of whoever is inside. With his breath held, he prepares to open the door very carefully and attentively. As the door cracks open, he's surprised by a quick and unexpected attack from inside the room. An improvised spear comes toward him, but he manages to block the blow with his golf club. Surprised by the attack, he recognizes the sound of the spear and understands what's happening. The other survivor also seems shocked to see that he attacked a human and not a monster. In the distance, a zombie hears the noise of the fight and starts moving toward the security room. The man backs away from the door and prepares to attack again if he needs to defend himself. In a swift move, our hero manages to disarm the guy and pin him to the floor. He disarms the guy and throws him to the floor to show he's not a threat to him. Taking advantage of the distraction, the protagonist manages to push the other guy into the room and closes the door. He quickly locks the door to ensure the zombies can't get inside the place. Now safe, The two survivors face each other, ready to find out who the other is. The man asks if he's human, and our hero confirms it as they both eye each other suspiciously. The protagonist explains he came because of the generator, and the other immediately understands the situation. To identify himself, he shows his ID badge and introduces himself as the assistant manager of the sales team. The man introduces himself too, but our hero worries about the possibility of him being infected. He analyzes the guy and notices he isn't sweating and seems to feel the cold just like him. The two continue to stare at each other, and our protagonist tries to think of a plan for the situation. The other man notices the backpack on the young man's back and stares at him with a curious and attentive gaze. With the improvised weapon in hand, he remains on the defensive, ready for any move. The protagonist notices the other isn't hungry and concludes that he is not infected. He tries to get closer, but the man backs away, making him even more suspicious with his actions. Our hero realizes he's made the man tense and now needs to find a way to break the ice. With an idea in mind, he drops his golf club and takes the pack of cigarettes from his bag. The other man watches his movements carefully and remains on guard, not letting his defenses down. Our protagonist shows his hands to prove he doesn't want to fight and tries to calm the mood. He then remembers that smoking together can help people relax and decides to offer a cigarette. The other man looks at the cigarette and then at the guy with a doubtful expression on his face. He takes out the pack of cigarettes and extends it to the man as a gesture of friendship and trust. With a smile, he offers a cigarette and hopes the other will accept so they can talk. The man accepts the cigarette and looks at him with a serious but now slightly more relaxed expression. Still holding his weapon, he seems calmer and the two can finally understand each other. The man thinks for a moment and decides to accept our confident protagonist offer. He takes the cigarette and asks for one to smoke while putting his improvised weapon on the floor. Our hero puts out the cigarette on the table, and the two finally start to relax a bit. The other guy says he feels alive again, and our protagonist agrees with a smile. Suddenly, the man's stomach rolls, and he gets embarrassed by the unusual situation. He explains he only ate half a chocolate bar, and our hero decides to help him with that. The protagonist figures he must have gotten the food from the break room on this floor. The man opens his backpack and shows some instant noodles, breaking them in half. He offers half to our hero and advises him to chew it well, so he doesn't get sick. The two eat together, and the protagonist asks if he cleared out the entire second floor. The guy confirms it and says he no longer needs to worry about storing food in the fridge. With his mouth full of noodles, our hero continues the conversation with his new companion. Now calmer, they sit down to talk and better understand each other's situation. Our protagonist asks how the situation is on the second floor, and the man says it's not good. He says he was trapped in the break room with a colleague, and they shared the food, but his colleague insisted on leaving while he thought it was better to wait for rescue to arrive. In the end, the colleague left and got infected as soon as he opened the break room door. Our hero comments that there seemed to be a lot of zombies, and the man confirms he saw 4 of them. He only left because his battery was dying, and he needed to find a way out soon. The man explains that he distracted the zombies and crawled out to escape. Our hero praises the man for escaping from 4 zombies, and he appreciates the compliment. He then asks if the other guy was the one who turned on the generator, and the guy confirms it. Seeing a power strip, he understands the power was turned on to charge something. The man with glasses asks if the phone is still useful, and our protagonist looks at him confused. The other is surprised and asks if he survived all this time without using the internet. Our hero says there's no signal, but the man reveals that satellite internet is working. Shocked by the news, he remembers the company's Spacile link and confirms he knows it well. The man explains that there are still servers running and some online communities. He offers to charge our protagonist's phone and invites him to sit down. The phone starts charging, and our hero is finally able to connect with the world. He sees posts from other survivors and realizes the internet is indeed working. Grateful, he turns to the man and thanks him for all the help he has offered. The two remain silent for a while and observe their surroundings with great attention and calm. Suddenly, the light starts to flicker and they look up, worried about the situation. The man with glasses warns that the emergency generator is about to run out of power. He then asks what our protagonist plans to do next and looks at him seriously. The guy says he's going to stay there, and our hero realizes he wants him to leave. He understands he's a burden to the other who just wants to protect himself and save food. Our protagonist agrees that they aren't ideal partners at the moment. With a determined look, the two face each other and decide it's best for each to go their own way. Our hero decides to leave because he knows he would be an obstacle for the other survivor. The man with glasses understands the decision and agrees to the two survivors separating. Before leaving, the man takes something from his backpack and turns to our protagonist. He offers a flashlight and a portable charger as a farewell gift to the guy. Surprised and grateful, our hero accepts the items, knowing they will be very useful. In return, he offers a lighter, and the man thanks him for the unexpected gift. The two say their goodbyes, and our protagonist prepares to go on his way alone. With a smile, he turns and waves goodbye to the other survivor with a friendly gesture. The man wishes him good luck, and the two part ways, hoping to meet again. Our hero says goodbye and hopes they see each other again alive and well in the future. He hurries to leave before the power goes out, and everything in the building goes dark again. Looking at the lobby door, he sees the zombies are still trying to get into the place. With his golf club in hand, he prepares to explore the rest of the building alone. He goes down the stairs and decides to head to the basement to get the company car and escape. The parking lot is full of cars, and he realizes he can use one of them to get away. However, he wonders if leaving now is the best choice or a hasty decision. For now, he decides to go back up and gather more information before trying to flee the building. He climbs the stairs, determined to explore and find a safe way out of the place. Suddenly, the lights go out and the hallway is plunged into total darkness again. Countly, he takes out the flashlight he received and prepares to continue his journey in the dark. With the flashlight in hand, he illuminates the dark hallway and gets ready to go up the stairs. He moves slowly and carefully, knowing the zombies might have moved to a different spot. Going up the stairs, he passes the 4th and 5th floors with great attention and caution. As the flashlight lights his way, he hears a strange noise from above and stops. He realizes there's someone on the floor above, and the probability of it being a zombie is high. With a golf club in hand, he prepares to face whatever is up there. Determined to survive, he decides to move forward and break any obstacle in his path. He leaves his bag and flashlight on the floor so he can fight with more freedom and agility. Suddenly, a zombie appears at the top of the stairs and starts coming down toward him slowly. Relieved, he notices the monster has its back to him, and he might be able to slip by unnoticed. Silently, he climbs the steps, taking the chance to pass by the creature without being seen. However, the zombie turns and attacks him by surprise with a quick and unexpected blow. The creature attacks him fiercely, but he manages to defend himself from the blow with his golf club. Startled by the sudden attack, he prepares to fight back and fight for his life. The zombie leaps at him, but our hero hits it with the club, sending it flying. With a direct hit, he strikes the monster's head with all his strength and determination. The impact sends the creature flying into the wall with a loud and frightening sound. The zombie screams in pain, but our protagonist doesn't stop and prepares for the final blow. With a battle cry, he attacks the monster with another powerful and definitive strike. The zombie falls to the floor, and our hero finally manages to neutralize the threat and breathe. With the zombie's body on the floor, he can finally breathe a sigh of relief and rest. With his heart racing, he wonders if the fight is finally over and if he's safe. Unfortunately for him, the zombie starts to move again, and he realizes it's not over yet. He strikes the creature one more time with all his strength to finally finish it. After the blow, the status window appears, and he earns one more coin for winning the fight. The blue screen shatters, and he realizes the head of the golf club has also broken. He picks up the broken piece and decides to keep it as it might be useful in another situation. With a flashlight in hand, he investigates the body and wonders where that zombie came from. He checks the rooftop door and sees it's closed, so the monster must have come from somewhere else. Worried, he realizes the 7th floor may no longer be a safe place to stay. He returns to the office and checks if the area is still secure and free of any threats. Relieved, he takes a deep breath and prepares to rest a bit after the intense fight. He drinks some water to calm down and thinks about the speed of the zombie he just faced. The creature was much faster than a normal human and seemed like a wild animal attacking. He realizes that if there had been 2 zombies, he would have perished, and he needs to find allies soon. He grabs his phone and decides to check the internet for more information about the zombies. In the survivors gallery, he sees hundreds of posts from people all over the country. He reads accounts of the temperature dropping and the difficulty of finding safe drinking water. Unfortunately, there isn't much new information about the zombies and their weaknesses right now. He summarizes what he knows, remembering they are sensitive to sound and have poor sight and smell. He knows he can only stop them by destroying their heads, and that a bite is fatal. Frustrated, he realizes the internet is just full of people asking for rescue and no real help. This leads him to a terrible conclusion, and he realizes the government has collapsed. Devastated, he understands that no one is coming to save him and that he's on his own now. Suddenly, he sneezes and feels his body shivering with cold and weakness in the office. On the 5th day of survival, he realizes he's about to catch a cold. He knows that getting sick now means the end, and he needs to find a solution quickly. To warm up, he starts doing exercises and generating heat with his own body. His stomach rumbles with hunger, and he decides to eat a chocolate bar to replenish his energy. He eats the entire bar because he knows he needs calories to survive the cold. After eating, he prepares to go out in search of more food and essential supplies. He decides to leave his shoes behind to make less noise and not attract zombies. He remembers there's still food in the development team's break room. The problem is that the zombie colleague has the backpack and there are more monsters around. He hides and observes the dark office infested with hungry zombies. He notices the zombie colleague is still wandering around the office with the backpack on. Our hero knows the only way is to eliminate the zombies one by one and get the backpack. He watches the monsters moving and plans a strategy to attack without being noticed. The first zombie is near the door, and he prepares to attack the monster by surprise. He approaches carefully and gets ready for the first confrontation in the dark office. He counts the zombies and realizes there's one more somewhere in the office. Confused, he wonders where the last zombie is and if it hasn't transformed. He needs tools to fight, but knows there's an unknown zombie nearby. With the flashlight, he peeks through the door's window and sees the break room is empty. He enters carefully prepared for any surprise attack from a monster. The room is dark, and he uses the flashlight to search for supplies and tools. With a smile, he sees the supplies are still there and he can take what he needs. Suddenly, he hears approaching footsteps and quickly hides so he won't be seen. With a determined look, he prepares to put his plan into action and lure the zombies. He uses a cup to make noise and get the attention of the creatures on the other side. The cup falls to the floor, and the sound attracts a zombie that approaches to investigate the source. The creature gets closer, and our hero prepares to attack the monster by surprise. The zombie enters the room, and our protagonist attacks it with a quick and precise blow. He strikes the monster's head hard and neutralizes it before it can react. With a smile, he celebrates his victory and prepares for the next step of his plan. Suddenly, he hears more zombies approaching and sees them trying to break down the door. The creatures pound on the door violently, and our hero needs to act fast to escape. He looks in a mirror and sees the reflection of the zombies trying to get into the break room. He locks the door and celebrates that his plan worked exactly as he imagined. With the zombies trapped, he can finally grab the backpack with the food and supplies. With the flashlight in his mouth, he celebrates his victory and prepares for the next zombie. Suddenly, a zombie grabs him by the leg and pulls him to the ground with great force. The creature holds him tightly, and our hero realizes he's in trouble again. The monster opens its mouth to bite him, but he manages to defend himself just in time. He shoves the flashlight into the zombie's mouth to stop it from biting his arm. With the flashlight holding the monster's mouth open, he buys some time to think of a plan. The creature tries to bite the flashlight, but can't, and our hero prepares to fight back. He tosses the flashlight into the air and lands a powerful punch on the zombie's face. The blow sends the creature flying, and he gets ready for the next attack. With the golf club in hand, he finishes off the zombie with a strong and precise strike. His eyes gleam with determination as he prepares to face the other monsters. He doesn't stop and continues to fight fiercely to survive in the dark office. After the fight, he rests and tries to recover from the intense and tiring confrontation. Exhausted, he runs a hand through his hair and realizes there are still more zombies to face. He looks in the mirror and sees the bloody handprints of the zombies on the other side. With 2 more zombies to face, he prepares for the next round of the fight. He picks up his flashlight and gets ready to finish off the monsters once and for all. With the flashlight in his mouth, he needs to end the fight before more zombies show up. He lures the last 2 zombies into the room and prepares for the final showdown. The 2 monsters enter the room, and he gets ready to fight both of them at the same time. He throws the broken piece of the golf club, and one of the zombies gets distracted by the object. The other monster attacks him, but he manages to dodge and prepare for a counterattack. He uses the flashlight to blind the zombie and buy time to attack the other monster. With the zombie blinded, he prepares to attack the colleague with the backpack of supplies. The creature recovers and attacks him, but he manages to dodge and grab the object on the floor. With the piece of the club in his hand, he attacks the zombie with a swift and precise blow. He finishes off the creature and prepares to face the last zombie in the office. The last monster attacks him, but he manages to defend himself and strikes it with a broken club. The status window appears, and he earns 4 coins for his victory in the intense fight. He grabs the backpack from the zombie colleague and notices it's quite heavy with supplies. Now, without a weapon, he decides to look for more supplies and tools in the office. He starts searching through desks and drawers for anything useful for his survival. In one of the drawers, he finds a portable charger and nutritional supplements. With a smile, he celebrates his luck and puts the new items in his backpack. Excited by the discovery, he decides to search the development team 2's area as well. He enters the room and starts looking for more useful supplies and tools. The guy manages to find a few things that will help him move forward. Happy with the result, he manages to find a charger and several supplements. With a full backpack and a flashlight in hand, he prepares for his next journey. He walks through the office, and now his goal is to explore another part of the building. Suddenly, he remembers the last zombie and worries about the possibility of an attack. Without a weapon, he knows he's in danger and decides to leave the office as quickly as possible. He runs through the dark hallway and steps on something on the floor, leaving a bloody mark. With the backpack in his arms, he finally manages to calm down and breathe a sigh of relief in the area. He laughs at the thought that he feels safe in the office despite the chaotic situation outside. Tired, he hugs the backpack and allows him to rest a bit after so much stress. He decides to check what he managed to get in the backpack and prepares to organize his items. Inside the backpack, he finds chips, chocolate pies, cookies, and instant noodles. With a huge smile, he celebrates his luck and is thankful for finding so much food. With these supplies, he knows he can survive for a month if he has drinking water. As the adrenaline wears off, he starts to feel cold and shiver in the dark, chilly office. His wet feet make the situation worse, and he decides to wash up a bit to get warm. He washes his feet with the icy water and complains about the intense cold he feels in his body. Suddenly, he notices a wound on his foot and worries about the possibility of infection. Shocked, he wonders if he was scratched by a zombie during the intense fight earlier. He remembers he wasn't bitten and tries to calm down to avoid panicking in the situation. With his phone in hand, he researches the infection and whether scratches can transform him. He finds a post from another survivor who was scratched and didn't transform. Relieved, he reads that only bites can turn people into hungry zombies. With this information, he can finally relax and prepare for the next day. Happy that he's not infected, he celebrates the news and feels much more relieved. He puts his phone away and gets up to continue his journey in the dark, cold office. However, the problem now is the cold, and he needs to find a way to warm up. He tears up the blanket and realizes his feet are freezing, and he needs to warm them up quickly. With the status window in front of him, he opens the shop to see if there's anything useful for him. He looks for winter clothes and finds several options to protect himself from the cold. The shop offers clothes, boots, gloves, and winter hats, all costing 3 coins each. Frustrated, he complains that the items are sold separately and for the same high price. With no choice, he decides to buy the boots to protect his feet from the intense cold of the place. The boots appear in front of him, and he's surprised by the magic of the status window. He picks up the boots and tries them on, curious to see if they will fit his feet. The boots fit perfectly, and he realizes the items are customized for him. However, he knows the boots alone won't fix the cold, and he needs something more. He looks for more options in the shop, but can't find anything that can help him in this situation. With a determined look, he continues to search for something that might solve his problem. Suddenly, he finds a mysterious item in the shop and decides to buy it to see what it is. He presses the purchase button and spends one of his coins to acquire the new item. A pair of sweatpants appears in front of him, and he's confused by the unexpected purchase. However, he uses a heat patch from the pants and feels a little more alive and warm. With his feet warm and a bit more comfort, he prepares for the next challenge. He complains about the price, but knows the heat patch is essential for his survival. With the patch on his feet, he feels immediate relief and manages to warm up a bit. With a smile, he feels alive again and ready to face whatever comes next. Sitting by the window, he watches the snow fall and prepares for another day of struggle. On the 7th day, he goes to the sink and realizes the water has been cut off in the building. He prepares for the worst and fills his bottles with the water that was still left in the tap. With about 2 liters of water, he knows he only has enough for a few more days. Lying on the floor, he despairs, realizing the water ran out just when he was feeling better. He picks up his phone and sees that other people are also reporting the water outage. In a post, a survivor says he's going out to look for a nearby supermarket. Other people ask if he went, and the man confirms he's on his way and will post if he makes it. He sees the post and notices that the number of new publications is decreasing every day. With a sad look, he concludes that most of the survivors probably haven't made it. Looking out the window, he can barely see any signs of life and feels more and more alone. He tries to stay optimistic and believe there are still other survivors out there. On the 8th day, he checks the post from the man who went out and sees there's no reply. With his hope dwindling, he realizes he can no longer just sit around waiting for a miracle. He looks out at the snow-covered city and knows he needs to act if he wants to survive. With a determined look, he gets up and prepares to go out in search of a way forward. With limited food and water, he knows he can't wait any longer and needs to risk it all. He knows that going out alone is a death sentence and needs to find an ally to survive. The problem is he needs a weapon to move around and look for other survivors. He only has a golf club, which isn't very durable and breaks easily against the zombies. The shop offers a hammer for taking down zombies, but it costs a pricey 5 coins. With 5 coins, he could buy winter clothes and a heat patch to keep warm. He decides to explore the other floors for supplies and weapons before spending his coins. On the 4th floor, he enters an office and braces himself for what he might find inside. He's confused to see the empty office and wonders what happened to the people there. With his flashlight, he illuminates the area and realizes there's no one there, and everything is silent. He notices blood stains on the desks and keyboards and starts to get suspicious. Besides the stains, he smells a strange odor in the air and realizes it's the smell of zombies. He doesn't understand where the bodies are or what happened in the abandoned office. He tries to open a door, but it's locked from the inside and he can't get in. Surprised, he wonders if someone is hiding in there, but doesn't hear any noise. Suspicious, he prepares to break down the door and find out what's on the other side. With his golf club, he strikes the doorwork knob hard and manages to break the lock. He announces that he's coming in and prepares to face whatever is inside. With a strong kick, he opens the door and enters the dark room with his club in hand. The door opens, and he finally gets into the room to investigate the mystery. He sees several cabinets and drawers and gets ready to search for supplies and clues. Shocked, he turns around and sees a pile of zombie bodies in the corner of a dark room. He counts at least 10 bodies and wonders who was able to eliminate so many monsters. With a curious look, he wonders if there was someone that strong in his company. He realizes the place has been searched and that there's nothing useful left for him. Frustrated, he realizes that someone has already cleared the floor and taken all the supplies. He wonders who is so thorough as to take everything from the abandoned office. He finds a mug and notices there's a note left by the other survivor. The note explains that the survivor cleared the floor and piled the bodies in the room. He reads that the other survivor left his shirt and warns him to avoid the 5th floor. The note reveals that the man is heading to the west coast to stay safe from the zombies. He regrets having missed the chance to find an alley by just one day. The survivor identifies himself as a colleague from the accounting team and former special forces. On the back of the note, he finds a PS that mentions a gift left in the drawer. Excited, he opens the drawer and finds 2 coffee packets as a farewell gift. With an ironic smile, he realizes the gift isn't that useful, but appreciates the gesture. On the 10th day, he eats a chocolate bar and reads the note from the other survivor. He remembers the warning to avoid the 5th floor and becomes curious about what's there. He goes up the stairs and decides he needs to find out what's happening on that floor. He approaches the door and prepares for the worst he might find on the other side. The tension rises and he gets ready for another confrontation in the zombie-infested building. He wonders why the 5th floor is dangerous since it's the president's office. He throws the paper away and decides to trust the other survivor's warning for now. He hasn't seen any signs of life since the day before and feels increasingly alone. As time goes on, the chances of finding an alley decrease, and he needs to act fast. He doesn't want to miss another chance and decides to look for survivors on the other floors. Looking at the blinds, he wonders how many floors he'll have to check to find someone. Suddenly, a light flashes in the building across the street, and he realizes it might be a signal. He runs to the window and sees someone in the other building sending him a light signal. With a hopeful smile, he realizes he has finally found another survivor. He sees the person in the other building, but can't understand what they're trying to say. Confused, he tries to communicate with the other survivor, but the distance is a problem. He uses his phone to try and read the message the person is trying to send him. With a camera zoom, he's able to read the note and understands the message from the other side. The note says there are people on the 6th and 7th floors and invites him to join them. Excited, he celebrates finding more survivors and gets ready to head over there. With his golf club in hand, he prepares for another journey in the infested building. He goes to the president's office and wonders what he might find inside. He enters the room and is met with an unexpected and very surprising scene. Instead of zombies, he finds a private gym belonging to the company's president. Shocked, he realizes the president had his own private gym in the office. He sees that the entrance isn't blocked and wonders if the survivor cleared the path. He approaches carefully and identifies himself as an employee from the building's 7th floor. Suddenly, he trips on something and falls to the ground, knocking several objects off a table. He notices the door was broken down and that something strange is going on in there. He senses a presence behind him and turns to see a frightening shadow approaching. A zombie attacks him from behind, but he manages to defend himself with a golf club just in time. The creature knocks him to the ground, and he struggles to get rid of the monster with all his might. He manages to push the zombie away, but the monster comes back at him ferociously. He kicks the zombie hard, sending it to the other side of the room to buy some time. With the monster down, he prepares to finish the creature off with his golf club. With the zombie on the floor, he prepares for one more strike to end the threat. He attacks the zombie with all his strength and finally manages to neutralize the scary creature. Exhausted, he cries with relief and recovers from the intense and dangerous confrontation. He gets up and looks for supplies in the room, but doesn't find anything useful. The status window appears, and he gains one less coin, leaving him confused by the situation. He wonders if the survivor from the other building was lying about the allies. Suddenly, he hears a noise coming from a locker and approaches to investigate. Relieved, he realizes the man didn't lie and that there really is a survivor here. He prepares to open the locker and find the other survivor in the building. Hopeful, he gets ready to meet his new ally and fight for survival. He knocks on the door and says he doesn't want to hurt anyone and just wants to talk. He asks the person to identify themselves and says he came to join the others. Our hero introduced himself and says he's also an employee of the company from the sales team. With no response, he prepares to break down the door and enter the room by force. A voice asks if he's assistant manager Song, and he's surprised by the question. The door opens, and he sees his co-worker Sona standing there in front of him. Shocked, he realizes she's been here the whole time, hidden and safe from the zombies. The two sit down to talk, and he understands that she was there from the beginning. She tells him that last night someone knocked on the door urgently asking for help. With a bad feeling, she refused to open it, but the man broke the door down. She hid in the break room, and the man turned to a zombie shortly after. Scared, she heard him growling and dragging himself down the dark office hallway. Our hero realizes that the zombie he eliminated was the man who attacked her. She asks if he has a weapon, and he points to the wooden spear in the corner. He notices the weapon is similar to the one the other survivor used and gets curious. The young woman explains that she sharpened a mop handle with a utility knife, and it's quite useful. He sees blood on the tip of the spear and realizes she's faced zombies before. However, he knows she could be a risk and a liability in a world like this. He prepares to leave, but she calls out to him and grabs his golf club to help. She says he's going to need a weapon and joins him in the fight for survival. She holds his arm and begs him not to leave her alone in the building. He apologizes, but knows he can't risk his life for her at that moment. With tears in her eyes, she says she won't be able to survive on her own and asks for his help. He pulls away and says he's very sorry, but he needs to go his own way to survive. She reveals that she used to practice fencing and could be a useful ally in the fight. Surprised, he looks at her and she shows him a scar on her arm to prove her skill. She says she cleared the entire 6th floor and can show him the bodies to prove her strength. With a determined look, she warns that he'll regret it if he leaves her behind. Impressed by her confidence, he begins to reconsider his initial decision. She boasts about having won a silver medal at National Sports Festival. With a handshake, they finally seal their alliance and decide to fight together. She says she has searched the place and that all the clothes and food are here with them. He asks about the chargers, and she explains that the satellite internet is working. Surprised, she realizes they need to grab every charger they can find. He asks how many zombies she's faced, and she tells him it was 8 in total. She finds the chargers and puts them in her backpack so they can use them later. He's happy to have joined her and knows his chances of survival have increased. She only finds 2 chargers and puts them in her backpack for their journey. With everything ready, she asks if they can go, but he asks her to wait a moment. He looks down the dark hallway and prepares for the next step of their plan. He notices the marks on the door and asks what happened for it to be like that. She explains that the man who broke down the door tried to crush it with a desk. He realizes the marks aren't from a desk and goes to investigate the area carefully. On the desk, he finds a caliper and is surprised by the unexpected discovery. With a smile, he picks up the tool and gets excited about finding a new weapon to fight with. He knows the metal tool is very sturdy and won't break easily. The young woman regrets that the weapon is short, but he doesn't mind that detail. With a smile, she says she has an idea to improve the new weapon they found. She takes the tool and starts working on her idea with great creativity. With the help of some tape, she attaches the caliper to a long mop handle. She shows him the new weapon, and he's impressed with his ally's creativity. The new weapon can be used as a spear and also as a grabber to pick things up. Grateful, he takes the new weapon and feels much safer to face the zombies. With her food and his combined, they no longer have to worry about supplies. He notices a frying pan in her backpack and asks where she got that item. Embarrassed, she explains that she brought it for a trade, but ended up forgetting it in her bag. He takes the frying pan and realizes it will be very useful for melting snow to drink water. She asks how he knew she was there, and he explains about the message he received. He tells her about the survivor in the other building, and she's surprised by the news. The two prepare to find the other survivors and join forces against the zombies. He explains that he received the message and shows her the phone to see the conversation. She reads the message and wonders if it's safe to join up with strangers. They both agree it's risky and that they can't trust just anyone in this situation. The young woman explains that she teamed up with him because it would be hard to find someone trustworthy. She doesn't want to take just anyone as a partner and would rather fight alone than in bad company. He agrees, and they decide not to join the group from the other building for now. She thanks him for considering her opinion and reveals that she thinks Manager Choi is alive. Surprised, he asks about the manager, and she explains what happened on the first day. She says the manager was with her on the 6th floor, but ran away and never came back. Scared, she ignored the man's pleas for help and only found out he escaped later. He asks when the manager left, and she says it was on the night of the 2nd day. He deduces that the manager might be on the 3rd or 5th floor of the abandoned building. If the other survivors don't get a response, they might try to join up with the manager. He worries that the manager and the others might team up and come after them later. They decide to ignore external factors and focus on their own survival. The good news is they have one more coin and can buy something from the item shop. He thinks about buying a hat to keep warm, but knows there are other priorities. He looks at the young woman and notices she's barefoot and must be very cold. He decides to buy the boots for her so she doesn't freeze and become a burden. With a decision made, he presses the purchase button and spends his coins on the boots. He decides to buy the boots for her, but hesitates when he sees the other options in the shop. He feels selfish for thinking of himself in size. Frustrated with the situation, he decides to choose later and falls asleep, tired from the fighting and daily stress. The next day, he wakes up with the sunlight and prepares for another day of struggle. He asks the young woman how much battery she has, and she checks her phone right away. She gets startled seeing him awake, and he complains that he's still not used to the cold. She confirms she charged all the batteries except the one he left behind yesterday. Her phone is at 22% battery, and they need to conserve power. She remembers there's a solar generator on the rooftop and asks if he's checked it. Surprised, he asks if there's something like that in the building, and she confirms it. She explains she was in charge of the project, and the generator was installed on the rooftop. The project was canceled due to a malfunction, but the generator is still up there. She doesn't know the details, but the malfunction wasn't an equipment safety issue. He asks if she knows how to operate the generator, and she confirms she can get it running. Excited by the news, he decides to go to the rooftop to check the solar generator. They open the rooftop door with difficulty because of the snow piled up outside. With great effort, they manage to open the door and step out onto the snow-covered rooftop. Exhausted, they complain about how hard it is to open a simple door with so much snow. Looking at the top of the building, he asks if the generator is really up there. She confirms it, and the two get ready to climb up and try to turn on the solar generator. He finds the temporary ladder and gets ready to climb to the top of the building. He tries to pull the ladder, but it's frozen and won't come down at all. They decide to climb, and he asks if she can make it to the rooftop. The young woman offers to go up if he helps her reach the top safely. He agrees and gets ready to give her a boost so she can get on the roof. With his hands on her feet, he prepares to boost her and helps her up. With a jump, she manages to reach the top and holds on so she doesn't fall. She celebrates her success and gets ready to look for the solar generator on the roof. He watches and notices that she is very agile and moves lightly and with ease. She looks for the generator and finds it covered in snow in the corner of the roof. With a smile, she confirms she found the generator and prepares to take it apart. She says she'll disassemble it and toss the pieces down for him to catch on the terrace. She throws the first panel, and he manages to catch it successfully and without any trouble. The second panel comes right after, and he catches it just as easily as the first. The last panel is the heaviest, and he struggles to catch it without dropping it. With all the panels on the ground, they prepare to install the solar generator. Exhausted, they complain about the hard work, but feel relieved to have succeeded. She says the installation is complete, and they finally have a power source. She regrets that the snow will hinder its efficiency, and he worries about the clouds. With the generator installed, they hope the power will be enough for them to survive. She remembers that with strong sun, the generator used to charge to 50% in half a day. With the weak sun, they hope the generator can manage to charge at least a little. The next day, they check the phone and brace themselves for a disappointing result. The phone only charged 8% in an entire day, and they are frustrated. Disappointed, they realize that all of yesterday's effort wasn't worth much. She laments the situation, and he knows they can't do anything without the sun to help. Despite the disappointment, he says there's a new hope and a new idea for them. He knows where they should go after leaving the office to survive. He reveals that their destination is the company warehouse to get supplies. She agrees with the idea, and the two of them prepare for the journey to the warehouse. The problem is how to get there, and he worries about the GPS and the phone's battery. She surprises him by saying it's no problem, and she knows exactly how to get there. Confused, he stares at her, and she reveals that the warehouse is near her house. She used to walk her dog around there and knows the way by heart. Relieved, he celebrates their luck and is thankful to have her as an ally on the journey. He realizes it was a good decision to team up with her and that she's a great partner. He calls her name and prepares to ask his ally an important question. She turns around and looks at him curiously, waiting to hear what he has to say. He asks what her shoe size is, and she's confused by the question. With the information, he gets ready to buy the boots for her from the item shop. He lies and says he saw the boots and thought of getting them for her if they fit. She smiles and says she's a size 230 and thanks him for the kind gesture. Relieved, he sees that she's happy and she offers to go with him. He says he'll go alone and asks her to wait there while he gets the boots. She tries on the boots, and they fit her feet perfectly like a glove. Suddenly, the status window appears and informs him that a party has been formed between them. He discovers that any coin she earns will automatically become his now. He realizes that having more members in the party is a huge advantage for survival. The young woman thanks him for the boots, and he concludes that he can increase the number of members. She asks about the status window, and he wonders if there are other functions. She calls his name, and he realizes he got distracted by the new system discovery. She worries about him, and he says he's just a little dizzy from not eating well. He notices she can't see the window and concludes that only he can see the system. The two decide to eat something to feel better and plan their next move. On the 14th day, the water runs out, and he feels very thirsty and weak. He agrees they need to melt snow and prepares for the difficult task. The young woman says she'll get papers and documents to help start the fire. They decide to make the fire on the terrace, so they don't cause a fire inside the building. On the terrace, he worries that the smoke might attract looters hiding nearby. He knows that looters are dangerous and travel in groups committing crimes. He lights the fire with the lighter and gets ready to melt the snow and drink water. The fire catches, and they watch the flames with hope and relief in their eyes. They warm themselves by the fire and feel the pleasant heat on their frozen bodies. The young woman feels alive again with the warmth of the fire and smiles, relieved by the sensation. She places the frying pan on the fire and starts melting the snow so they can drink water. The snow melts, and they finally have drinking water to quench their thirst and survive. They drink the warm water and feel refreshed and more energetic to keep going. He gets emotional drinking warm water for the first time in a long while and gives thanks. The young woman cries with joy and feels grateful to have found a little bit of comfort. They sit by the fire and feel happy that they didn't give up the fight. They decide they will fight until the end and survive the zombie apocalypse together. On the morning of the 15th day, he wakes up to the young woman urgently calling him. She wakes him up, and he gets up startled, not understanding what's happening. He asks what's wrong, and she covers him with a blanket to keep him warm. She points to the building across the street and says the other survivors sent a message. Surprised, he asks what the message says, and she looks at him with a worried expression. She reveals that the other survivors are coming to their building to meet up. He gets up quickly and prepares for the arrival of the new allies in the building. The tension rises, and they prepare for the meeting with the other survivors. With their imminent arrival, they hope the new allies will be trustworthy and strong. The message says they are coming to their building to join their group. He asks when she saw the note, and she says she woke him up as soon as she saw it. She warns that they move fast and will be outside soon. They worry that the fire attracted the others and that they might be looters. Since they don't know them, they decide not to join their group to avoid any danger. Suddenly, she points outside and warns that the other survivors have already arrived. They see 3 masked men approaching the building with weapons and backpacks. Shocked by how fast they were, they prepare for the worst that might happen next. They rush to pack their things and prepare for a possible confrontation. Meanwhile, the men fight off the zombies outside with great skill. They move quickly and fight systematically to take out the creatures. In a short time, they manage to clear the area and get ready to enter the building. Our hero calculates that it will take them 15 minutes at most to reach them. He finishes packing his things and asks if the young woman is ready to go. She says she's almost ready, and they prepare to flee the location. Outside, the zombies continue to attack the men, who fight bravely to survive. Suddenly, a horde of zombies appears and surrounds the 3 survivors on the street. Surprised by the number, they realize they're in danger and need to run. They shout to run and start fleeing from the zombies that pursue them ferociously. The 3 of them run down the snow-covered street, looking for a safe place to hide. One of the men uses a sledgehammer to defend himself from the attacking zombies. He shatters a glass window to get inside the building and escape the horde of monsters. With a sledgehammer, the guy smashes the window, and the other one gets inside the building to escape the zombies. The protagonist then gets annoyed and complains about the situation they're in now. The young man asks if the girl left anything behind, but she replies that she got everything she needed. He then looks at some solar panels and decides it's better to leave them behind. The girl says they have no power without them, but he replies that survival comes first. Hearing this, the young woman falls silent and seems to agree with his decision. Then the girl stands up and gets ready to keep moving with her companion. Suddenly, a very loud crash. It goes down the hallway, startling the pair. Frightened, they realize the monsters are coming up the stairs to get them. Now they have two options. Either go to the roof or go down to the lower floor. The roof would be easy to defend, but the cult is a problem, so he decides to go down. The plan is to go down to the 6th floor and then block the entrance to protect themselves. And so the pair starts to go down the stairs carefully, trying not to make any noise. The young man tells the girl to stay ready as danger could appear at any moment. However, they encounter 3 strange men coming up the stairs toward them. The tension rises and the pair grips their makeshift weapons tightly to defend themselves. Suddenly, the protagonist feels something strange and time seems to slow down. His perception of the environment changes and he can see everything more clearly now. The girl says that the same feeling from before has returned and is even stronger now. Scared, the girl looks at the manager and asks what the sensation she's feeling is. He answers yes and says the men must be looking for other survivors in the area. The strangers continue down and reach the 4th floor of the abandoned building. Meanwhile, the protagonist and the girl are standing on the 5th floor waiting for the danger. He warns that the enemies are coming and the girl says she already knows and is prepared. The two get into position, firmly holding their makeshift weapons for the fight. However, nothing happens, and the young woman is confused by the sudden silence. The pair stares at the door, wondering why no one is coming up the stairs. The girl then notices something different about the manager and comments that he's acting strange. Suddenly, the young man reacts sharply and moves quickly away from the door. In the same instant, a nearby glass window suddenly shatters into several pieces. The girl asks if he's okay while the young man wonders what just happened. The young man replies that he's fine and asks about her, and she confirms she's also unharmed. He then asks if the noise was from an explosion, and the girl agrees with the idea. The protagonist wonders why they would use explosives, knowing the two of them were there. He remembers a warning that said not to go to the 5th floor if they could avoid it. The girl thinks that the department head is probably still alive somewhere. She figures that if they haven't moved, they must be on the 3rd or 5th floor of the building. The young man becomes worried and starts to suspect something terrible about the other survivors. He decides to go down to check, and his companion asks if they should go right now. The young man confirms and says that if he's right, then it's likely something bad has happened. The flashlight beam cuts through the darkness of the hallway, revealing dust in the air. The young man then pulls the girl into the room, and they explore the area carefully. The girl is startled by the destruction and asks what happened in that place. The manager tells her not to let her guard down, and the young woman agrees with him. Suddenly, the girl stops walking and stares at something on the ground ahead. She calls her companion and points into the darkness, asking him to look in that direction. The protagonist then looks where she pointed and is shocked by what he sees. Lighting up the room, they find a person on the floor in a red puddle. The young man asks the girl to wait and approaches to investigate the scene. He finds it all horrible and wonders why there are only 2 bodies and no more bombs. Looking at the door, he notices that it was completely destroyed by the explosion. Angrily, the young man complains about the situation and the difficult life he's leading. The young man wonders why they try to take him out, and then hears a familiar voice. He recognizes the VOIC's department head, Choi, who is injured nearby. The chief talks about having no choice as we see his badly injured feet on the ground. The older man notices the pair's presence and is surprised to see them there. He calls out for Manager Song with a strange smile on his face, making the mood tense. The chief crawls on the floor and reaches his hand out toward the protagonist, calling for him. Manager Song is frozen in fear and surprise at the appearance of his superior. The man on the floor asks for help with a bizarre smile, and his leg is severely injured. The man on the floor begs for help and says he really wants to keep living. He yells that it's not fair and that he doesn't want to go like this, asking the manager for help. The protagonist just watches this scene with a dark expression without saying a word. The girl approaches and the Civ department head Choi is still alive. The older man looks at her with a surprised expression, not understanding the situation. Then the chief introduces himself to the young woman and crawls toward the two, asking for help. The young man says he's very sorry, but they don't have any medicine, nor are they doctors to help. Desperate, the man shouts loudly that he really wants to keep on living. He then says there's a way that he can survive this serious injury. His crazy idea is to turn into a zombie, so he won't pass away, and he asks them to bring one over or to take him to the 1st floor so he can be caught by the monsters. The manager apologizes and says he can't do that while pushing his hand away. With a firm gesture, the protagonist shoves the man's hand away from him. Furious, the chief yells and asks why they won't help him after he stopped the robbers. He accuses the pair of having an affair and wanting to run away together, which is why they won't help him. The man then threatens to take everyone with him and reveals he still has one bomb left. He reaches out to grab something, but the manager yells at him in anger. The girl then realizes the other men were indeed looters and not friends. The young man confirms there was nothing in their bags, and the girl laments her broken shield. Crouching down, she checks her equipment, and the young man agrees with what she said before. The protagonist looks tense as he glances to the side, sweating a little after the decision. The girl on the floor looks up while the young man stands near her in the hallway. He says the chief would have passed away anyway, and the girl is confused by his statement. The young man explains that he would have passed on for blood loss, and that this just lessened his suffering. He tells her not to feel guilty, and the girl stares at him with a sad look. The girl asks about turning into a zombie, but he says the end result would be the same. With wide eyes, the young woman seems to understand the logic behind his action. She then agrees with the young man, and seems to accept the harsh reality of the situation. Through the broken window, we see the snow-covered city and the clear daytime sky outside. Suddenly, the girl points at something outside, and quickly calls for the assistant manager. The young man approaches the window to see what caught his companion's attention. He is shocked to see a huge horde of zombies gathered on the street right below them. On an online forum, people are commenting about the explosion and the large number of monsters. Reading the messages, the protagonist says that they weren't the ones who spread the news. Now that the location has become a topic online, more looters and zombies are likely to show up. On the roof, he says that most of the monsters are still around from the day before. The young man concludes that the lobby must be packed with no room to even walk properly. He decides they need to leave by the next day before the emergency exit is taken over. The young man then suggests they check the situation on the first floor of the building. The girl with the headlamp on leads the way down the dark stairs of the building. Suddenly, the girl stops and asks him to wait, asking if he hears a noise. A loud banging sound echoes, and the young man says the noise seems to be coming from above. The two fall silent and look at each other worried about the strange sound they heard. Peeking through a crack, he sees a frightening blood-covered figure walking around. The young woman is terrified by the scene and covers her mouth to keep from screaming in fear. She wonders how this is possible and suggests it could be a zombified Manager Choi. However, she quickly dismisses the idea as the man should already be gone. The young man then supposes that maybe one of the looters was caught and came up the stairs, but he himself finds that unlikely as the guy would have already transformed by then. He thinks a survivor from the third floor came up, or else a monster climbed the stairs. The other possibility is that the creature got in through the broken window on the fifth floor. Seeing a zombie crawling through the window, they decide to go with the first theory for now. Then the young man decides to go back to the first floor, and they see a horde of monsters. He knew it would be bad, but he didn't imagine this bad, and says the floor is lost. The girl worries about the security room and what might have happened there. She thinks that Assistant Manager Choi, Jae, would have heard everything up close. The protagonist's hand trembles slightly as he thinks about the dangerous situation. He tells his companion that leaving through the front door would be a terrible idea. The girl suggests using the underground parking garage, and he agrees with the suggestion. He says he had seen zombies there before, and now they will see how many have gathered. The girl estimates there are about 10 monsters, and the young man says that's fewer than in the lobby. She thinks the snow made people abandon their cars, and he sees many places to hide. Since it's underground, there's no wind, so if they're fast, the zombies won't smell them. The protagonist then points to a mirror and asks what the girl can see in the reflection. The young woman looks carefully and says she can see the B1 level, but the image isn't very clear. She strains to see better, but the angle of the mirror makes it a bit difficult to see. The girl reports that the number of monsters is similar, and he decides to go up to the 7th floor. Back in the office, the girl comments that it would be best to escape by car while writing down the plan. He remembers that the car was left in the cold for a long time, so the battery might be dead. The young man dismisses the car idea, and the young woman regrets they don't have bicycles for their escape. The pair then focuses on mapping out the best escape route on foot through the city map. Through the window, heavy snow is falling, and the temperature outside is the pair's backpacks are already packed for their departure, which will be soon. With 5 hours to go before they leave, the girl asks why her companion isn't sleeping. Surprised, the young man asks if it was that obvious that he couldn't fall asleep. The girl replies yes because he hasn't stopped moving and tossing from side to side. The young man falls silent and turns his face away with a serious, thoughtful expression. The girl asks if he's like this because of the person they found on the first floor. He confirms, and the young woman says he can bring them along if he wants to. The protagonist thanks her, but declines as it would put her life in danger as well. The young man says it's a shame because it was someone trustworthy, and she laments the dangerous situation outside. While they're lying down, he asks if the person can join them, and she agrees. Suddenly, the young man gets up from the table. leaving his companion a bit surprised. The young man then grabs his phone and says he's going to use it for a moment, apologizing for the brightness. With a smile, the girl agrees and allows him to use the device without any issues. He sends a message to the assistant manager, setting up a meeting at 6 o'clock in the morning. On the 17th day of survival, they prepare to leave at 5:40 in the morning. The young man checks the post and sees there are no comments, just 2 anonymous replies. Despite the lack of a response, he thinks they might be waiting and decides to go anyway. Going down the stairs, the pair passes through the floors until they reach the first level of the building. Arriving at the meeting point, they realize there's no one waiting for them there. The girl comments that it's only been 3 minutes past the time and asks if they should wait. Outside, the snow continues to fall heavily and time passes slowly for the pair. The phone's clock then shows 6:05 in the morning and no one has shown up yet. The protagonist concludes that they're not coming and that there's nothing more to do there. Suddenly, he notices a zombie that wasn't there before, and the girl confirms it wasn't. The young man decides they need to deal with that monster and stick to the original plan. The girl observes that the zombies really do wander around the same place as she saw. The young man notices that some monsters just stand still and they start to move. Crouching behind a car, he prepares to move forward as a zombie approaches. The pair look at each other for a moment and prepare for the fight against the creature. The young man then stands up from behind the car and comes face to face with the scary zombie. He drags his foot on the ground to get the monster's attention and lure it away. Hearing the noise, the creature slowly turns its head in the direction of the sound it heard. The zombie then starts walking strangely toward the noise it heard. With a growl, the monster reveals its frightening face and prepares to attack. Suddenly, the creature runs toward the protagonist with its mouth open to bite. The zombie screams desperately as it rushes toward the young man. The young man just gives a slight smile and prepares to take down the monster easily. With a precise strike, he hits the creature's head with his makeshift spear. The girl also attacks, and a notification appears saying that 1 coin has been obtained. The coin goes to the group leader, and the young man gives his partner a thumbs up. The young woman seems happy and relieved to have gotten the reward for her effort. The pair then continues walking through the parking garage, careful not to be seen. They head toward the exit of the underground parking garage of the abandoned building. Finally, they get outside and feel the intense cold of the snow-covered street everywhere. The young man says if they sleep outside, they might not survive and suggests a destination. And so, the pair starts running through the snow-covered streets, dodging cars. In the distance, they spot a lone zombie wandering aimlessly through the snow in the city. The young man comments that progress is slow, but it's better than getting caught and having to fight. Finally, they spot their destination, which is the Qian stream in the middle of the city. The young man warns them to walk carefully as there are many monsters near the police station. With 30 m to go, the pair can see their objective and prepares to move forward cautiously. They continue walking and the distance to their destination shrinks to 17 m. The protagonist stays focused on the path and thinks that everything is going well as planned. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind starts to blow, carrying the snow and their scent with it. The young man panics because the wind will spread their scent, and the girl points in a direction. Near the police station, the zombies begin to catch the scent and become alert to the human presence. Then one of the monsters turns his head toward the pair and realizes they are nearby. Immediately, a group of zombies starts running toward the two to attack without a second thought. The girl gets desperate and asks her companion what they can do now. He thinks that going down to the stream is not an option, as that would be the end for them. Even if the monsters can't get down properly, they could roll down and attract even more zombies. The horde on the stairs proves that the noise would attract a crowd of hungry creatures. The only way out is to get into a building, but he wonders where they could hide. Unfortunately, the places with open entrances are already full of monsters everywhere. And if they break a window to get in, the noise will attract all the zombies in the area. The girl then yells that they need to do something fast before it's too late. She points to the left and yells for him to look in that direction quickly. The young woman spots a park bus on the left and seems to have an idea for their escape. The pair tries to open the bus door with all their strength, but it doesn't move an inch. The girl suggests breaking the window, but the young man stops her when he sees something inside the vehicle. To their surprise, the bus key is in the ignition, ready to be used. With his makeshift spear, he prepares to break the glass of the bus door. The young man grits his teeth with determination as he prepares for the final blow. Using all his strength, he manages to break the door's glass and create a way through. The girl gets on the bus first, and the young man follows her right after into the vehicle. Seeing the zombies approaching, the girl yells for the assistant manager to hurry. Once inside the bus, the protagonist tries to close the door to block the monsters from entering. He struggles to hold the door, but fears the zombies will manage to get into the vehicle. Outside, a horde of zombies rapidly approaches the bus, trying to invade it. Sitting in the driver's seat, he tries to start the bus, but the vehicle doesn't respond. Realizing the door won't hold, he decides he needs to block the entrance somehow. The girl understands the plan and runs to help hold the bus door. The pair struggles to hold the door while she begs for the plan to work. The bus wheels spin in the snow, but the vehicle can't get out of place. The pair grows worried as they realize the bus is stuck in the snow and won't move. The girl looks at the door in desperation as she pleads for the bus to work. The young man also becomes desperate, breaking into a cold sweat over their dangerous situation. The young woman yells that the zombies are coming, and the young man wonders why the bus isn't working. A zombie tries to get on the bus while the pair begs for the engine to finally start. The young man yells at the monster to get out and attacks it through the door with his makeshift weapon. With a strong blow, he pushes the creature away, buying them precious time to escape. The pair remains desperate and tense, trying to get the bus moving to escape. With his eyes fixed on the road, the protagonist concentrates on starting the vehicle's engine. He then stomps on the accelerator with all his might to try to get the bus to move. Suddenly, the bus lurches forward and the girl loses her balance, falling to the floor. The young man asks if she's okay, and the girl quickly gets up, confirming that she is. He then tells her to hold on tight, because the situation is still dangerous. Finally, the bus starts to move, and they manage to escape from the horde of monsters. The vehicle slides through the snow and passes a building as the sun begins to rise. Relieved, the young man continues to drive carefully so as not to lose control of the bus. He keeps his foot on the accelerator to gain distance from the zombies left behind. And so, the green bus continues on its way through the snow-covered city streets. Suddenly, he realizes the road is frozen and becomes worried about the danger. The young man tries to use the handbrake, but the bus starts to skid out of control. The vehicle's side mirror then hits a pole, sending sparks flying from the impact. Inside the bus, the girl looks on in fear and braces for a possible hard crash. She shuts her eyes tightly and grits her teeth, expecting the worst to happen next. The bus finally comes to a stop sideways in the middle of the street after skidding on the ice. The girl breathes a sigh of relief inside the bus and holds on tight to the metal bar. The young man says they managed to block the door and have solved the immediate problem. Remembering the monsters outside, the pair wonders what to do now that they're trapped. The zombies continue to pound on the bus windows without stopping for a second. He comments that they need something to draw the monsters' attention away from there. The girl warns that more zombies are coming and he fears the bus might tip over. Monster hands cover the window, and he thinks it's ridiculous to end up like this. The young man becomes desperate, wondering how they came so far, only to fail now. Suddenly, a shopping cart flies out of a store and crashes hard into a car. The loud noise of the crash gets the attention of all the nearby zombies. The horde of monsters then turns and runs.